I think, this effort to sort of use stablecoins to manage U.S. government debt. The problem I have, and I can sympathize a little bit with the idea we don't want the dollar collapse because that causes economic instability. I mean, yes, that's obvious, but the problem is when you reward criminal activity from the private banks and the central bank that has been going on, well, really the Fed's entire history and really arguably for the private banks as well, they will continue that criminality.
In a recent discussion on TFTC with Whitney Webb, we explore the potential role of stablecoins in reinforcing dollar dominance, their similarities to CBDCs, and the implications for Bitcoin in the shifting financial landscape. At the time of this conversation, Bitcoin is trading at approximately $889,000, showing a 2% increase in the last 24 hours and a 42% rise over the past 30 days. Before diving deeper into this insightful discussion, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this channel. Now let's hear more from Whitney Webb.
Well, what I'm worried about with stablecoins might be a little different than maybe what you or Mark or some other people are worried about. For example, in the case of Tether, they're openly willing to seize people's wallets at the behest of OFAC or the Treasury Department if they're put on the U.S. government naughty list. I find that very problematic, that if someone, for example, in Argentina or another country is holding Tether and the U.S. government decides, I don't know, so let's pretend they have a government they don't like. They do right now, right? But it's someone else. And then they're like, oh, we're going to sanction whoever. They can take someone's dollar-denominated, stable coins or whatever, and just seize them without any sort of accountability. And then that way, as I mentioned earlier about how the U.S. military views the IMF as a tool of financial power, they view sanctions that way too. And if Tether and presumably other stablecoin issuers, but specifically with this effort to regulate all dollar stablecoins, have them all be regulated by the U.S. government, there is the potential for the U.S. government to very much abuse that and also use it as a tool for wanton financial surveillance, in the same way that you have people like Augustine Carson's at the BIS saying we want to have complete visibility into every cent essentially that people spend, and now we have the technology to enforce that. We want total control. Stablecoins can lead us to that paradigm. And at the same time, I would argue that one of the most damaging things that has happened in the past several hundred years is the debt-based monetary paradigm. Debt crises have been manufactured by criminals time and again to steal people's wealth all over the world, leading to great suffering for people really everywhere. In ways that, I think people forget that, pretty much in the case of Latin America, pretty much as soon as Latin American countries became independent, they began to be attacked by banks and started having their first debt crises. Again, manufactured, most of them by the Bank of England or by British banks or the City of London, but that has continued. For decades and decades. The cycle repeats, and it's happened everywhere. And now, since the Bretton Woods system and post-World War II, you've had the IMF, you've had the World Bank, and these entities, using debt slavery, essentially, to, force countries to do things they otherwise wouldn't do, erode sovereignty, and steal from people and abuse entire populations. That paradigm should not continue, in my opinion. And by allowing it to continue and by trying to yoke Bitcoin, for example, to that paradigm, I think really would be a loss of an opportunity to use Bitcoin to neuter what is one of the greatest enablers of financial criminality for centuries.
100%.
And I think it's going to be difficult to truly liberate people from the criminal system that runs our government and, most of our world, frankly, if we continue to allow that debt-based paradigm to continue and have a particular government that I've noted in my book, for example, has been controlled by criminal elements for a very long time. And maybe people think the criminal elements will be less now, but we can't quite be sure, can we? Do we really want the one government to have so much power over people's money, including in countries that are not the United States?
As we just heard, Whitney Webb explored the rise of stablecoins and their implications for dollar hegemony. Now let's dive into her thoughts on how these digital assets might reflect the characteristics of CBDCs and what that could mean for the future of Bitcoin and personal financial sovereignty. Let's hear what Whitney Webb has to say.
Kamala's economic team and Biden's economic team essentially being run by BlackRock executives. And then, when Trump was in office last time, Larry Fink had basically, BlackRock designed the U.S. fiscal response to COVID that they began implementing before a pandemic was even declared. And it resulted in one of the biggest, wealth transfers in American history, and printed more money than at any other time in U.S. history. And, that was BlackRock, and they're not going away. And the fact that Fink is like, we work with both administrations. I mean, they worked with Obama during 2008, they worked with Trump, and they worked with Biden, and would have worked with Kamala. He's retired the term ESG, and uses things like sustainable investing and climate finance and other terms now. But he openly says that it was never about conservation or saving the planet. It's about profits. And if you look at Larry Fink's track record, like what I just mentioned with COVID fiscal policy, their track record is basically stealing wealth from the public and then using control they take over corporations or pension funds or, other things like that to try and force behavioral changes among corporations and the American public. And what sort of behavioral changes does Larry Fink want? I think we all know by now. Well, it was a wealth transfer that went beyond the wealth transfer that was the 2008 economic crisis. And, what concerns me is that one of the top people being floated for a Treasury Secretary position under the new Trump administration is this James Paulson guy, who was one of the most successful 2008 criminals and made more money than anyone else, but really should have been prosecuted for the way he did that, because the bank he worked with, Goldman Sachs, actually ended up sort of getting prosecuted for it. No one was really prosecuted in 2008, but there were civil cases, very few. And this, it was like called Abacus, and there was another one that Paulson and Goldman Sachs worked on together, and that was one of the few that was so egregious it actually resulted in a civil lawsuit, even though, yes, no bankers went to jail, no banks were really punished. There were some fines handed out, but there was really no accountability. And when you have that scale of wealth transfer and theft happen with no accountability, you can be sure that the same people responsible for that were like, we can continue to fleece the public and steal more if we do it the right way. And so the fact that, he's being considered, for that position, I find very concerning. And as I understand it, the other pick is Scott Bessent, who is a former money manager for George Soros, which, doesn't necessarily appeal to me either, or at least doesn't suggest that it will be fundamentally, different than maybe preceding Treasury Secretary policy at the end of the day. But again, we will see. Hopefully it will be someone not that terrible. And there are some people in his camp that are big, sound money people and backing the dollar with something of substance. Maybe something will come of that. But what has been most telegraphed has generally been this Bitcoin dollar stablecoin play that we discussed earlier. But given that those people are in the Trump camp, if people want to see something different, they should push to have those people elevated over people like Paulson, who used credit default swap fuckery to make up $1 zillion at the expense of lots of other people.
To watch the full interview, check out the link in the description. Whitney Webb shared compelling insights on the intersection of stablecoins, CBDCs, and Bitcoin, sparking important questions about financial freedom and the future of our monetary system. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Could stablecoins compromise the decentralized nature of cryptocurrencies? How might government-regulated stablecoins affect Bitcoin's role in the financial system? Thank you for tuning in. If you found this discussion valuable, please like, subscribe, and share our video for more engaging content exploring the innovative world of decentralized technologies.